Greetings, pilgrims, and welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage. And today I have something pretty fancy for you. I've been excited to show this to you. I'm working on a gigantic personal project, a portfolio piece, and I wanted to have a screen like this in my project, and so I set forth to figure out how would this work. Now, if you're like me and you have been enjoying the game Prey, you'll see that there are screens similar to this one, and as you're playing through the level, you can just walk right up to the screen and just point right at these buttons, and all of these buttons function. They have a nice little animation here. There's a go back feature. There are some that have text. You can pop out that text, and all of these are the same, so if I get close to this one, I can actually activate this one as well, and it's the same screen here. So we are going to take some time here and we're going to step through exactly how I created all of this. I'm not going to show you the model itself. It's just a quick model with some textures. Really the main content here is the screen and all of its functionality. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. Alright, so here we are inside of UE4, and we're going to step through this one section at a time to figure out the various parts and pieces that are required. So, starting with the first-person character, we needed to make some changes here. So here are the changes to the viewport that I've made. You can see here underneath the first-person camera, we have a widget interaction component here. And this component, I had to make some changes to its location and to right here, its interaction source. This was set to world, and I did enable hit testing. And then I had to make some changes to the exact position, a little bit of tweaking up and down, and this was related to exactly where I click on the screen versus exactly where the cursor is. So by playing with those values up and down, I'm able to get the right position, and you can see here what my values are. If you want to copy those exactly, I can see 0.02039, negative 0.034975, and negative 3.999, basically negative 4. So those are the values for that exact position with this widget interaction. Now let's jump over to the graph for this guy. So what I've done here is I've just disabled the gun and the little ball that you shoot out, because we don't really need that. And this is the only really important part here. So all of this works on a right click. So if I right click, what do I want to do? Well, what I want to do is press the pointer key, and this is symbolizing right clicking, and it kind of translates it for the way that widgets understand that they're being clicked on. And what I'm doing is saying when I right click, send it to a widget as if it's been left clicked. So this allows me to have my left click for something in the game and then right click to interact with these screens in real time. And then I have my widget interaction here, and that's just pulled directly down from here. Drag and drop, do a get, put that into the target for both. So when I press the right mouse button, we want to interact, and when I release the mouse button, we want to stop interacting. Okay? So that's all we have to do for our first-person character. They should be all set. So now let's go over to talking about the actual widget itself. So this is in two pieces. The widget is both a widget, and then we have an actor or blueprint, and so the two are working in conjunction. So this first one here that we're going to do is the actual widget. So if I go over to that guy, here's what he looks like, and there's a ton of buttons in here, ton of animations. We're going to go through everything. So to begin with, it's very simply a canvas, a bunch of buttons, and then some images, and that's really all it is. The real work is in the graph. So for here, we had a couple of buttons, and what I wanted was 4 buttons to begin with: a welcome, an about, a guide, and then a credits. So for my scene, it's going to be sort of like a museum, sort of like a standalone environment. You can walk around and look at everything. The idea is to showcase my skills, and I wanted to have an environment that would leverage that. So you have a welcome message, I have a little about to tell you all about it. The guide will actually guide you through the room, and I want to keep it a little bit under wraps because it is pretty cool, but I will show you how this expansion thing works, and this is the exact same setup I'm using. And then the credits will be credits thanking everybody who has helped me along my way. So we got a bunch of buttons here, as you can see: welcome, about, guide, credits. There's a back button, and then underneath the guide there is suit, armory, and room. Okay, and then the suit has 2 children to show what a sub category would look like. Then we have a couple images here. So the image background is this dotted, holographic kind of basic background, and then rings A, B, and compass Sorry, let me click that. A, B, and compass are these guys over here. This is just for some extra fanciness. You may recognize these from a previous video I did where I made all of these shapes inside of Substance Designer. So if you're interested in that, I have a video on that. So all of these buttons have just two things, the button itself and then a text component. So all of the text components are set to the right justify on the horizontal, and the buttons themselves are using two images. The one is our button base, the other is our button hover, so that when we hover over the button it kind of highlights a little bit. And the button base is used again for the pressed because I wasn't interested in another one, just two is fine. You do need to make sure that these are set to draw as image. If we put them as draw as box, you're not going to get the right setup, okay? So that's really all we have for this. The images and then the buttons themselves, and there is a image here, this screen overlay. That's just this fancy little sci-fi bit along the edge there. So let's take a quick moment and jump over to Photoshop, and we're going to look at how we created these shapes and the button colors and all that, and then we'll come back in and work our way through the rest of this. So if I pop over to Photoshop here, what you can see here is here's my buttons, and these are created with a very simple shape. It's really just a rounded rectangle, and then I have a list of brushes that are all different sci-fi things, and I used it to cut out this shape. I thought it was pretty cool. It's almost like this is a like a slat on a board, and then this is the header, and this is kind of the footer. That's actually what I call them here, header, footer, and header, hover. And then they're just two different colors. So if I close this guy out, let's take a look here. So he's turned off, so there you go. They're just two different colors, and then it's the same effects applied to every single one, okay? So we'll take a look at the effects. So our effects here, we have an inner glow, and here are the settings for that. Normal 100%, no noise, softer, choke is 10, size is 20. A gradient overlay of a soft light at 50%, and this is a gradient that goes from white to black in the center to white at the far end. And then we have a pattern overlay. This is a custom pattern I've created just to create these horizontal lines in it. So I'll just put that on a screen of 25%. And that's it. There's nothing really super fancy about those, but they look great, especially when they're all together. So when you hover over the button, it goes bloop. There you go. And then I used the exact same setup here. And going over to here, what I did was I just made these two different shapes, upper and lower, and they're using the same pattern here. And what you can see here, I left some of my scrapbook here to show you. This was all created from just dragging out a rectangle about this size, and then I created these shapes, and I used these as my subtraction guides. You can kind of see how they fit perfectly into some of those shapes. So by taking a shape like this, and then if I say Control and click, it will make a selection of entirely that shape. Then I can hide that shape, and now you can see if I were to delete, that's where I cut out from here. And then to keep this part on the bottom, I would just go and say, let's add back to our selection, let's bring that up, and there you go. Or I'm sorry, that would actually be removed from the selection because we have a full diamond selected. So if I do that, remove, now I'm deleting and I'm keeping that shape. And so that's what I used all these for, and I just wanted to make sure that I showed that to you and that you understood how I got some of these complex angles. It's really just a combination of doing those things repeatedly and do them well. So for both the button and for this, once I was finished with my shape, I would get a full selection. So Control click, Control Shift click. Then I go to my channels and I would add an alpha channel. And you can see here I put solid white into that shape. That's what I have selected. And then black for the rest. And then just click here for RGB and click back over to layers, and then I save it out. And that becomes my image that I'm using in the widget. Alright, so minimize that. Finally, to get our shapes with the compass and all the stuff on the side, again, here's from the previous video that we did. I just took these shapes, put them all into a single file where they were centered on the square, and then here I've just been cutting them out and applying the same effects, the exact same effects. And then, just like before, we go to the channels and make sure we've put our alpha in there so that it cuts it out properly. Oops, see if you don't click that. There you go. So that's all with Photoshop. We're done with that. And then we have all of this set up. Everything's good. Everything looks good. We have all of our buttons and everything. But now what we need is we need to have some animations, and the animations are very simple to do. I was really surprised, and it's great. So for example, if I click on the welcome button and I click here, this is my welcome animation, and I'll play it for you here. So he's gonna whoop, because he mostly goes away because we're gonna choose something else. So what I've done here, this is a very simple animation technique. I'm gonna take my button and I'm gonna move the timeline just a little bit. Usually about an eighth or so is a good rule of thumb. It's not, you don't have to be perfect with this. And I move it just a little bit past where it currently is, and then I go all the way to the end of my animation timeline and move the button all the way over. The effect is this little kind of bounce out, and you'll see when we look at the fully featured thing, they bounce in really nicely too. So to create an animation for your buttons, all you have to do is select your button, and then come down here and click the plus animation, and then you're going to edit these parameters over here, and it's this little button right next to it, adds a keyframe. So what I did here, it's really simple. I just went to 0 and said, for your position on the X, just click that button. It adds keyframe here. Then I moved it a little bit, and it didn't move at first. It was still sitting still. And then I said 50, click the button. And now it's here. And then I go all the way to the end, click the button again, see minus 400. Because they're 300 wide, and I just wanted to make sure that it's completely off screen and then a little bit of a safe buffer. So I created all these animations. A lot of them are just bouncing in and out. The only ones that are special are like the go back button. So if we look at that guy, the back button, we look at some of his animations here. Back move. See, he does have a bounce out animation, but he has more than one animation. So what he has also is there's another one. He's got more than one because I have to, oh no, you know what he does? I'm sorry, he has one animation, but he actually gets moved. So in the code, I'm actually going to move him because he needs to be at different points based upon how many children we have in this tree. So then I move him up and then play his animation, and the animation is relevant to him, not relevant to the entire screen, which is awesome. So down here, I tried to name everything nicely. It has a move if it's moving in and out. These guys, the rings, their animations are quite simple. It's just a spin. And that is down here. Let me show you where that is because that took me a bit to find. Just a few seconds, but I was looking around. Down here, angle. Under the render transform, you can animate any of these properties that have this little icon here. And so this is animating the angle. And then once I had that animated, what I had to do was select this. Let's see, did I have to open it? Yeah. And then you can drag a selection to get all of your points. And by opening up the curve editor here, you see here we can look at it by curve. And I clicked this button here to do a linear interpolation because I wanted to make sure that the animation repeats exactly when it hits this point. Otherwise it tends to do this, what's called easing, where it slows down and slows down at the end, and we actually don't want that. Not for this case. I did use that on the compass because the compass has a whole bunch of animation points because he kind of meanders around, he's kind of figuring his way out, see, he's doing that thing. And so I said, you know what, that kind of motion is perfect for the easing, and I don't really mind if it's going to do some easing. So that's perfectly okay. So that's it really. And then here is the back guide down. Let's take a look at him. So see, he moves down. So that's a down animation for the go back button because, again, we're going to move him, and then we need an animation for him to move down to make room for the children. And then he also has a separate animation of moving out of the screen. And that's great because we can play both of those animations at runtime. Okay, so that's really all that's here. It's just a lot of that kind of thing. So now we're going to jump into the really complicated bit, okay? So let's do it. Here we go. And click that graph button. Boom! So I'm sure some of you have run away screaming, but that's okay. This is not really that complicated. Rather, it's not complex. It is complex, but it's not complicated. So there's a lot to it, but it's a lot of simple things repeated. They're not hard things to figure out. Okay, so first and foremost, let's address the elephant in the room. So I did run into an error, and I wanted to share this with you guys. Here's my solution to it. And again, this may not be the most elegant way to do this. I'm still very much a newbie for widgets here and for blueprints in general. but I've been really crunching hard, asking questions online, doing a lot of research, and this is what I found. There's a known issue that widget animations and some buttons play before the play of the session actually begins. So for instance, our buttons that like bounce out, they would bounce out before, when I hit Alt P or hit play, it would just kind of do all the animations and then show you the screen of the scene. So everything was already done, so it was kind of stupid. So to fix it, I go off of my event construct, which is the start play session, and I'm just going to each button that had that problem and saying slot as a canvas slot, put it into a set position, and I'm setting its position so that it would be back at its starting point. So then later when I call the animation, it's going to work properly. So that's all this section is here. That's just a bunch of them. See the text main, the about button, the back button, the credits, the guide button, suit armory, room, suit A, and suit B. All of them needed to be set. Then at the end here are our spinning sci-fi circle animations. So this is calling a play animation. You're going to see this a lot, so I'll go over it once here really well. So the play animation is pretty awesome. You just bring the exec in. So this is our program flow. We're coming along here. We're going to do some stuff. We're going to go out here. So we come into the exec and it says, hey, I want you to play an animation. It's like, cool, what animation? Point to this one, image UI ring A. Okay, I'm going to start at 0. Number of loops, if you set this to 0, it's going to loop indefinitely. So that's what I want. I just want it to spin forever. And I want it to play forward, meaning it's going to play the animation from the beginning to the end. You can also tell this reverse. You can do ping pong. I do all of that in here. So A and B, those two rings go forward, and then the compass actually ping pong. So it'll play all the way forward, and then it'll play all the way back, and it'll just go like that forever. And you can actually change the speed here as well. So if you wanted to use one animation for multiple things, and you could feed in a different speed each time. So that's pretty cool. I can make lots of rings and just make them different speeds. Okay, so essentially what we have going on here is a couple of things. This whole area is handling the back button. Okay, all of this here, 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 and here. These three are handling what happens if we hit the buttons for the guide. And this one right here, this guy, is handling the guide as well. That guide button, okay? So this is all going for our back button, and then guide button, and these are for our text fields, the two things that are texts. Now I need to expand this a lot. As you can see here, this says, this will need to be expanded a lot. Yeah, no kidding. But I'll show you how all of it works, okay? So I guess since we're here, let's start with this one. So quite simply, I'm going to jump back here. In here, when I click on a button, you scroll down here and you have all of these events. And you can see on clicked says view because it did say plus and I clicked it. And what that does is it generates one of these and says, okay, when you click this button, what do you want to do? All right, pretty simple. So when I click the button for the welcome, what I want to do is say, are we already looking at the about information? If we are, I need you to play the animation of the text moving out of the way and coming back in. I need you to set the text to the welcome text. Then I need you to play the animation again. See, first time we do it reverse to get rid of the text that's there. When it's off screen, we change the text into something else. And then we play the animation forward and bring the text back. And then I have a Boolean value here. So a Boolean is a type of variable. So over here, you just say variable plus Boolean, and it's true or false. So what I'm going to say here is, okay, now that we've put the new text, the welcome text up, and I've played the animation and it's on the screen, let's set an internal flag, a little reminder, a true false of, is the welcome text on the screen? Yes, it is. Cool. Now, if I click the button and no, we're not looking at the about, cool, we don't have to do this first part. I just say, okay, if welcome is not already on the screen, because we don't want to do it twice, then we're just going to go right into setting the text, play the animation, and again set our value true. So all this handles is when we click on the welcome button, it shows the welcome text. And you can see here, I have two main objects here, the text main and the animation of the text main slide, and that's the text sliding in and out. And so I'm just calling those every time it needs something. I'm just calling from there. And really these two should go more like around here because they're being shared by both of these. Now this guy down here, this is for the about button. Very similar. He's saying, hey, are we looking at the welcome text? If we are, get rid of that crap, set it to what I want, and then put the new text message in there, and then change and say we're now showing the about text. Again, when I click the button, if the boolean for welcome is not true, then we go down here and say, are we already showing the about text? Because if not, if we are, then I don't want to do anything. If we're not, cool, let's go forward. We'll set our text, player animation, and set our value true. Okay, so that's for all the texts. So now let's look at expanding the guide button, okay? So for this guy, when we click the guide button, if the guide button is not, if it's not currently expanded, which when you first launch it, it can't possibly be. So this will always kind of go forward here. So when the first time you click the guide button, it says, are we currently expanded? No. All right, let's expand ourselves. So it's going to play moving the welcome button out of the way. It's going to play moving the about button out of the way, then moving the credits button out of the way. Then we're going to delay a little bit for effect. Then we're going to move the guide button up. Then I'm going to set the position of the back button off screen. See the -400? I'm going to set it off screen. I'm going to delay just a quick second, or actually a quarter of a second to be precise. And then I'm going to move the back button onto the screen, delay just a little bit, and then I'm going to bring in the suit, delay, bring in armory, delay, and bring in the room. Then over here, this is my standard setup for everything. So the guide has now been expanded, so we're going to set that to true. And I have these three variables. Can we show the suit's content? Can we show the armory's content? And can we show the room's content? Yes, 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 yes. Because now that's what makes all of these work. And these are all the same, so I'm going a little faster here. We click on armory now. Guide is expanded, we can now click on armory. Can we show the armory? Yes. If we can't, we do nothing. So if we're now going to show the armory, we're going to turn off the suit and the room because we can't show more than one child of a parent at a time. So let's get rid of the room, delay, get rid of the suit, delay, bring in the armory, move the guide button down so that we have room for its children. So there'll be some expansion here in the future. Delay, armory is expanded, guide is expanded, but we cannot show the suit and the room. So these two are very identical to that. Just going to quickly show you. So again, suit is true, can show room is true, otherwise we do nothing. Set the other of the three, they're like three siblings, so whichever one is being chosen, the other two get turned off. And we set and unset things just like we just did. And then all the way at the end here, see I even left some room here for expansion. So again, we turn all this on or off based upon who has been chosen. Okay, that's all pretty well and good and easy. So now we're going to get into hitting the back button. So this took a little bit of thinking, but I got it worked out. So here is the initial. If we've clicked the back button and the guide is expanded and the suit is expanded, so the guide is expanded, suit is expanded, then we need to reverse some animations, and we're going to reverse the suit's children, A and B. Then we're going to reverse, we're going to bring in the armory button, we're going to bring in the room, and we're going to move the guide button. And then turn all these on or off based upon, see, suit is now not expanded, but the guide is still expanded, but now we can show these other three things. Then, if we have clicked back and the guide is expanded and the armory is expanded, so we have to do each of the children of guide, suit, armory, and room first, and then our only other cause would be if the guide is expanded but none of its children are expanded. So you clicked guide, it does its little thing, and then you say, no thanks, let me go back. So that's what we have here is guide is expanded but the suit is not, the armory is not, and the room is not. And then very similar, I'll go a little slow so you can see it. We're going to play reverse game here a lot. And at the end, set all of our variables. And after all of that, now we're ready to move on to the second to last piece of the whole puzzle. I know it's a lot. Thank you for sticking with me, but this is exciting. We're getting there. So all of this works now, technically. but we don't have a way to really show it in the world yet. So that's what we're going to do next. So if we go back here, you'll notice in the interactive screen toot folder here, I've got all the different things we have here, and one of them is expand menu toot. That's what we've been looking at, but this is a widget, and a widget needs to exist somehow in the world, and the way that Unreal does that is we put it inside of an actor. So I'm going to right click, create a new blueprint, new actor, and we're going to look at this. So very simple, just the default, and I'm going to add a widget component. Okay, then for this widget component, I didn't change any of this, didn't change any of this. It's right here. Space is world, and then this widget class, I'm going to drop that down and say expand menu toot. That is the name of this guy. You can't see it off screen, sorry. Expand menu toot for tutorial. So we're going to say, okay, you're a widget, but use this as your, kind of blueprint, no pun intended, for how you're going to build this thing. Cool. Okay. And I think everything else in here is standard. Let me just make sure. Widget screen component. All right. Now let's take a look at his event graph. His event graph is pretty simple. All this is to allow us to see the mouse cursor, and we're going to set our input to game mode and UI. So we're going to get our player controller. He goes into the target. He goes into this target over here. I'm going to choose our widget right from here. Just drag and drop him. Do a get. Say get user widget object, and he goes into the in-widget to focus. And there you go. So set it up just like that, and that allows us to interact with it in the world. So we can interact with UI and the game at the same time with the same cursor. And yes, we want to see our cursor so we can see what's going on. Okay, so now is the fun part. Let's play with it, and I'll show you all the various conditions that I checked. All right. So we walk up to our thing, and for testing purposes, this has no collision. So I can walk right into it just so I can get really close to it. We can just kind of see that rotate for a while. You can see the compass there kind of meanders. He'll turn for a bit, and then he'll go back suddenly, and then he'll go back. And with the ping pong, it goes back and forth, and you lose track of it. It just looks really nice. You can see our buttons, our text looks pretty nice up close. So now as I hover over these, you can see the highlight appearing. So if I click the welcome button, we have our text. So thanks very much for subscribing, all you guys. And if you're not subscribed, please do. And check out the website if you like. We can click our about button. So we'll put an about message there one day, just some placeholder text. And this guy, by the way, is the exact same widget here, just scaled down smaller, and he works as well. So I can do two of them at once. You can have different text on the screen, maybe even change out the contents. It's very cool. All right. So here's the guide button and all the stuff we were talking about. Credits right now doesn't do anything. I haven't messed with credits yet, but he would interact very similarly to these guys. All right. So yeah, he would be just like one of those. So we click the guide button. Here's the fanciness. So I'm going to do it a couple times so you can see it. So the guide button, we're going to get rid of everybody else and move guide to the top. Then we're going to bring in all of the children of guide, suit, armory, and room, and bring in our back button. Okay? So this is that state we were talking about where it says if all of the other three are false, then this one must be the one that's expanded, but we haven't further expanded him. So that's what allows us to do that and just go back to the main menu. So we'll click guide. There we go. Now armory and room both only have 0 children, so they move up to the top. We can go back. Room, everything else slides out of the way and they move to that position. We can say go back. Suit is the special one. He doesn't have to move, but the children of guide go away, and then suit has his own children, suit A and B, which those would eventually have text like this as well. Okay, those are elements of the suit. And again, being kind of vague because I want this to be kind of an impressive thing when it's all done. But if we hit back on that, it goes back to the root of guide with suit, armory, or room available. And if we go back one more time, we're back to the main menu again. And all of these, again, I can interact with this. So let's bring up the suit on this screen, and we'll bring out the armory on this one. You can see it move down. So fully interactive, and it's while you're playing the game level, you can just run up and go, okay, I need some information. All right, tell me about the room. And then over here, you can be looking at something else. Say go back. Say go back again. So fully interactive, very cool. So for my project, guys, when the room is complete and all this stuff is complete, there'll be a screen like this at the beginning to kind of guide you through everything and explain everything. There's a ton packed into that project. So I wanted to have sort of like a little, kind of like the kiosk at the mall. You know, you can walk up and be like, oh, where is everything? What's everything here? What am I looking at? So I'm going to be adding to this, hopefully some things you can point at, and we'll make some cool call out information and that sort of thing. So you can have like a picture of the suit that I'm building and you can point at it. It'll show its different statistics and all that. But for now, I really hope you've enjoyed. I thank you so much for sticking with me for a longer episode today, guys. But if you have any questions about this, if there's anything I missed, or anything that again, anybody who knows better, please tell me so I can improve as well. But I wanted to share all of my trials and tribulations and the fruits of my labor with you. I'm more than willing to post this up somewhere if you guys want to have it to dissect and look at it. And that's all for me for now. So as always, guys, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.